King Arthur. Did you know it was such an important part of English literature? According to the medieval histories, King Arthur was the British leader who was leading Britain army against the invaders in the 5th and 6th centuries. Now, it is mainly folklore, which led to the composition of the legend of King Arthur's stories. Some literary inventions have been made in the story, but the historical existence of King Arthur has really always been questioned. Is he more of a legend, or did he really exist? There exist a few historical sources for King Arthur, like the Annales Cambriae and the Historia Britonnium, and the writings of Gildas, which may be attributed to be the sources of the legend of King Arthur. The legend begins like this, with Uther Pendragon, the king, who secretly fathers a son who is Arthur. However, because of trouble within the kingdom, Arthur is given to the wizard Merlin to raise him. When Uther passes away, the kingdom is in turmoil because he has left no male heirs. Merlin sets a sword in stone and announces that whoever can pull the sword free is the rightful king. Despite every man's effort, no one can pull the sword. Young Arthur is sent in search of a sword for his cousin and accidentally happens upon the sword in the stone. He pulls it free and is named the new king. And through his bravery and skill, and with the help of Merlin, he gains the admiration and loyalty of the court and knights. And he fends off a Saxon invasion. Arthur is eventually wounded in battle and set to the mysterious Isle of Avalon for healing. He will one day return to Britain in its most troubling time, according to legend, and has therein earned the title of now and future king. Stories connected to his legend are Knights of the Round Table and stories about the search for the Holy Grail, the chalice from which Jesus is said to have sipped. Some examples of writing about King Arthur are Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Morte d'Arthur, the Fairy Queen, and Idylls from the King. They all portray characters from the Arthurian legend. Now I'm going to give you a little test. I'm going to read you an excerpt, very similar to one that you would see on the test. Then I want to see if you can guess it. I'll give you a hint. It's one of these four. In at the hall door comes a frightening figure. He must have been taller than anyone in the world. From the neck to the waist, so huge and thick, and his loins and limbs so long and massive, that I would say he was half a giant on earth. At least, I am sure he was the biggest of men. Yet he sat with a matchless grace in the saddle. His back and his chest and whole body were frightening, and both his belt and belly were trim and small, and all of his features were in proportion to the rest of him. But more than anything, his color amazed them, a bold knight riding, the whole of him bright green. Now, you're not familiar with any of these works yet because you have yet to have read them. But what happens if you're taking the exam and you come across a passage like that? I want to give you a little minute to look at the passage again and see if there's any clues that you could find, and if there's any way that any of these listed stories would be able to be the answer that you would pick. Let's look again. In at the hall door comes a frightening figure. He must have been taller than anyone in the world. From the neck to the waist so huge and thick, and his loins and limbs so long and massive, that I would say he was half a giant on earth. At least I am sure he was the biggest of men. Yet he sat with a matchless grace in the saddle. His back and his chest and whole body were frightening, and both his belt and belly were trim and small, and all of his features were in proportion to the rest of him. But more than anything, his color amazed them, a bold knight riding, the whole of him bright green. Do any of these look like they could be the title from which this passage was taken? Let's look at the titles again. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Morte d'Arthur, the Fairy Queen, and the Idylls from the King. Well, based on the clues that you were given in the passage, you probably guessed Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and you would be correct. I want you to do that on the exam if you have to. You may not be able to read the whole annals of English literature by the time you take the exam, but reviewing the lectures, doing the summaries on the reading list that is coming up, and using the information that you've gleaned from this and your studies, even if you have to make an educated guess on the exam, use your knowledge of these periods and authors and titles to make an educated guess about what the answer should be if you come across a passage that you're not sure of. Remember, you'll have to read these lectures several times. You'll have to study on your own outside of these lectures on the recommended reading list. And please do the study questions. This will give you practice and confidence so that you have patience and assurance when you take the exam.